Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andres Groves. I'm joined by one of my co-hosts, David Wyatt-Hupton. David, week one is here now. How are you feeling?
Equal part excitement, equal part nervous. just
sounds
want to
about
get
right.
that victory. Just want to win.
I know. It's a really big one. Like you want to say, well, it's just the first game, and we're rebuilding. We're not expecting to be, pushing for a Super Bowl this week. But it kind of feels like, just give us this one, please. Just let us get this one over. We just don't want the narratives of like the whole Sam situation.
Yeah, that's it.
That's like just
that's the worst
spare
part.
us
That's
that,
gonna
please.
be the worst part.
Yeah, spare us.
I can't do the whole week of Darnold gets revenge and return of Darnold. All that rubbish that's going to come.
Oh,
So
you know it. You know it's going to happen.
We've got to lose one game. I just don't want it to be this one. let's just get this one.
No, I think the only thing you could say is that if the defensive backfield is as bad as people think it could be, and then the receivers for Carolina do their bits, but our offense looks good. Zach looks really good, and maybe even more than Sam. Maybe it's just a CMC game, and that So there's ways that we could lose the game and still be okay, but overall, just win the game, get that W. And it's going to be a much easier week next week, for us. But we'll see. That's probably not the case. We're probably going to lose the game. I'm pretty sure about it when we talk about it in this way. So, we will be breaking down the game later on. So we're going to wrap up the show later on with our breakdown of the game. We're also going to be we're going to be speaking to Rob Cowsill, who is from 5 Yard Rush. He's a writer for 5 Yard Rush, and also he's also a podcast, kind of a football podcaster as well. But he's a Panthers fan, so he knows a lot about the team that we're facing on Sunday. So we'll have him on to talk about all things Panthers. But first, I think we'll jump into a little bit of news. Okay, so for the news this week, it's obviously, thankfully, a pretty quiet week. No injuries or kind of COVID things coming out. Obviously, we've got the Jameson Crowder situation. He may not come back, but other than that, nothing too major. Thankfully, just all nice and quiet going into week one. But obviously, the team captains were announced, and it was some interesting names. So you had Zach Wilson and Corey Davis on the offense. You had CJ Mosley and Foley Fatukasi on the defense, and you had Justin Hardy as special teams. So, David, what do you think about this team captains? What does it speak to you about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any huge surprises in there. It's good to have your quarterback as a captain. I think that's always important. So the fact they gave Zach it straight away is a big sign. A lot of people made whatever they wanted to make about Zach Wilson not being a captain his first bit at BYU, when he probably was, and that whole thing was just a bit confusing. So, no Quinnen is interesting. They went with Foley instead of Quinnen. But that's fine.
I think Foley is, when you see how he conducts himself, just in the limited things I've seen of him, he does seem like a bit more of a kind of like Quinnen's that dominant player, like the actual player itself is dominant, but I think as a leader in the room, almost like a McClendon was. Well, McClendon wasn't like the best player, but he was just naturally a leader. And Foley Fatukasi is just he's been like the only successful like pick from like the McCagnon in terms of like value, like a 6th-round pick who has become like one of the better nose tackles in the league, and a good leader in that room. So I think it's good. I think it's interesting that Marcus May also didn't get a shout for that, even more than Quinnen. But I think, I don't know, maybe they view it was voted by the players, so I don't know if it was to do with the contract stuff or anything like that. Maybe his reaction to the team because of the contract stuff, maybe that kind of lent them towards Foley. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's interesting with Zach. It's nice that he gets it as a kind of the QB. It's nice to have that, especially with all the nonsense about him not being the captain for a few weeks at the beginning of his season last year with BYU. He finally just gets in, so that kind of hushes up all those people who find it really important, or they talk about it as if it's so important. So yeah, nothing too shattering. But yeah, it's just nice that, those captains, and I think I kind of like all five of them, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm quite happy to see Justin Hardy in there as well. You hear about just his traits in general, but also his personality is
Mm.
infectious. So that's exactly what you need. And on special teams, I guess we haven't got an established kicker. Brandon Mann's only in his second year, so it makes sense for it to be Justin Hardy on specials, and I'm looking forward to seeing him this year because I think he's going to be quite fun to watch and big physical player that Salah's going to love.
Yeah, I think he's a great guy on the special teams. We finally got a kind of a really high level special teamer, who really specialises in that kind of really nailing that part of the team, and kind of doing really well for that team. So, and that's really important to have that because, some games can be won and lost on that. You work hard on the other two sides of the ball, and then that third side, if you can really let you down, the last minute, if you let, you kind of mistakes can happen on the special teams. It's an important thing just to keep it consistent and keep it, working well towards the end goal. So no, I'm really happy with the five captains, and yeah, just another sign that we are about to see the team in action for real, which is just is it's just been, now that we've done this podcast now, since kind of it's our first kind of season doing the podcast. We've gone through all the steps. We've gone through the free agency and the draft and all that stuff. Now we finally get to the season. Everything that is actually based on, we finally get to it. So I'm just really excited about that.
Yeah, I say it's nice to actually have football to talk about. So I'm really looking forward to the wrap up on Monday that we're going to do. So we actually
Yeah,
have real professional, counts football to actually go through.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to have it back. I don't know if I'm gonna wait up to watch the game tonight. I got work first thing tomorrow morning, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it to 3 a.m. to watch
That's
the
the
game. But I'll
kickoff
certainly
game,
check
right?
it out
Yeah,
first thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know about that. Yeah, I might have to. I might go sleep early and wake up early, and then you can kind of fast forward through the commercials, which kind of lessens the time you spend sitting on the sofa. It's like
yeah,
yeah, that's a tactic I do quite often with the Monday night or the kind of Sunday night games where you just get up a little bit early and you can kind of whiz through the commercials and just watch the game, or even game in 40 if you even have it, but even less time than that. That's kind of works quite well. But I might have to do
that's
that.
what I tend to use. The
Yeah,
game in 40 is the best invention that sports streaming has ever made. Because it
yeah.
just means you can watch other teams and actually get a full picture rather than the selected highlights.
No,
So,
exactly. Yeah,
you know,
it's good.
I'll try and get through 4 or 5 games a week watching that. So it's such a great invention. I can't wait to see that.
No, it's great. It's we are finally here. It's great. I think with that we'll head over to our interview with Rob. Okay, so we're joined by Rob Cowsill, who's a writer for 5 Yard Rush and also the co-host for the Ballers Dynasty League podcast. But more importantly, for this point, he's a Panthers fan. So obviously, we're here to discuss Week 1. Rob, thanks for joining us on the pod.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, it's great. It's really good. I was looking for Panthers fans. There doesn't seem to be a Panthers podcast right now. That's an option maybe for yourself to look into. But
Yeah.
I was looking for people who are like a kind of a person who also runs a podcast. No one there, so I was happy to find you. A podcaster, but also a Panthers fan. So it's really good, and really happy for you to join us. Before we start, I like to always ask the question of the journey of someone who lands on an NFL team when they're in the UK. How did you kind of become a Panthers fan?
Quite an unusual story. When I was about 20, I journeyed around America with a few of my friends from secondary school. Ended up going through New York, going through Washington, ended up in New Orleans, and I always wanted to get myself an NFL jersey. So I popped into a store there. No Saints shirts on sale. The only shirts they had left in were the least popular ones, and that was their rivals, the Panthers. So I was like, I'm just going to get a shirt. Didn't have any affiliations at the time. Got myself an extra large Steve Smith jersey, one of the classics,
Okay.
and
Yeah, of course.
traveled around the US with it, and then got back home. I was like, do you know, I might actually pay a bit more attention to the sport of the jersey that I'm wearing. So yeah, hooked into the Panthers. This was about 2005, I think, 2006.
Right. Yeah.
So I managed to catch some of the playoff years. And then yeah, just been there ever since. Really.
That's awesome. That's all that. It's very strange. Like you went to New Orleans and you found a Panthers shirt. It's like
Yeah.
that's just a bit funny. Like that's like picking up a Pats jersey in New York, you know. But
Exactly. Yeah.
anyway, I know it's always an interesting journey, like I said, for the UK fans to find their team. So off season, just kind of quickly running through some of the off season. How has the off season been received? Free agency, the draft, and going through preseason and training camp.
Well, looking at some of the weaknesses that the Panthers exhibited last year, I would really hope that they would focus on some of those areas for development in like draft and the free agency. And two of the areas I thought could really do with development were cornerback. Some of the cornerbacks that we had weren't great, and we conceded a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns in those areas. So to pick up JC Horn, I think was a superb pick. We got AJ Boy as well in the off-season, a really experienced head who can help develop those cornerbacks as well. I think he's actually suspended for the first few games from what I remember. So even just to have him there on the sidelines giving some support, is definitely really going to help. The other area that I would really hope we would have strengthened was the offensive line. And we had a chat before the podcast started, and I think you'll agree, you know some of these players who we've picked up, and I think we were a little bit lacking in those areas. However, some of the draft picks we did get, like Brady Christensen, I think he could be a really good player from what I've seen in the preseason.
Well,
games.
we know him a bit because he was blocking our guy at BYU last year. So yeah, we were interested in maybe him to pair up, but we went elsewhere. And we were happy with where we went. But yeah, that was definitely a name that was on our radar. We needed some interior offensive line help. As well going into the draft, so yeah, we know Brady quite well. And so in terms of the kind of going into training camp and the preseason, how has that played? How's the kind of been received in terms of leading up to the season?
I think we've had some really good results. Watching us play the Steelers seconds, there's no bones about it. It was the Steelers seconds, but to come and finish the season with a really strong victory is definitely going to, buoy expectations. Hopefully not apply too much pressure for the year, because I mean the schedule ahead does look quite tough. Starting with a very tough game. I think you'll agree.
Yes, I think it is. I think it's going to be tougher than some people expect. I mean, most people are picking you guys to win on Sunday. But I think it's going to be tougher than some people think. Yeah. But I mean, and then having like Terrace Marshall Jr. come out, like it was a great pickup. I thought. I think there was a lot of expectation on him coming out of college, and just to see him do what he does best in the preseason games, hopefully sets him up really well to be a part of this receiving corps. Yeah, he's definitely a name that we've looked at in terms of when we're comparing some of the pluses and minuses of each squad, and definitely him added to what you have with DJ Moore and Robbie against our very young DBs is somewhere we're looking at. So we look at this game on Sunday, first game of the season, very exciting, very big storyline of Sam playing his former team at his new home, with Zach Wilson playing his first ever game with a new coach. So there's just a lot of stuff happening, which is it's a very intriguing game against two, I think, very evenly matched teams going in. I think it's going to be quite a good game for the neutral as well. Who are some of the players that maybe, the general NFL fan, and obviously in this case Jets fans, wouldn't maybe be looking at so much, but you're looking at a guy who could maybe surprise on Sunday?
I think looking away from the obvious names of our offense, taking away from CMC, take away, Marshall, take away Anderson, take away Moore, I think you really have to pay attention to our tight ends. We've got, Dan Arnold, who's come in. It was a legitimate red zone threat for the Cards last year, and I think that was something that we were missing in terms of that area of our team. Ian Thomas was all right, but it just didn't get as involved as I was expected, and I'm pleasantly surprised by how Tommy Tremble's turned into a pass-catching maestro. I wasn't really expected, but they're really getting some really good uses out of that. I think looking at some of the stats, the Jets actually conceded quite a lot of yards and touchdowns to tight ends. Like one of the toughest areas that you need to cover. So I think that could be quite a legitimate area to keep an eye out for.
That's interesting. That's interesting because you look at the big weapons, obviously on the wide outs and obviously CMC at the backfield. But yeah, and I think obviously we know Tommy Tremble's actually interesting because actually I think he was the guy that we looked at as maybe some tight end help because we're weaker at tight end generally, and we're looking for some. It was a name that we were on the radar going into the draft, so that's interesting when you pair him up with Dan Arnold coming in and Ian Thomas. I think last year in terms of the formation, like the defense was a Greg Williams defense, and the and the offense was Adam Gase. That's the thing, is it's hard to look at last year's Jets roster and even the play and the results in any way. I mean, there might be some things that carry over, but it won't be because of anything that matters really. It would just be by coincidence because it's so different. Like the formation, we've gone from a 3-4 to a 4-3, so we've changed formation. It's completely a sea change. So I think there could be some. You look at, we've got CJ Mosley back, right? That's massive, and he's slimmed down, so he's ready to play that kind of that linebacker who can kind of go from side to sideline, which he's playing now at a lighter weight than he's played in his whole pro career, and he's got two young guys next to him who are quite promising, but they are young guys because we had Jared Davis, who we brought in from the Lions. He was injured, so instead of being one young guy with CJ Mosley and Davis, it's now the two young guys either side of Mosley. I think that could be an exploit for some CMC, for the tight ends for sure. But I think you've got as we've banged the drum a lot when we talk about this linebacking core from the Jets fans' perspective, Salah and the DC. Jeff Olbrich are really, really high-end linebacking coaches in the league with a really good pedigree of a lot of the known linebackers throughout the years have played under them. So I think, I'm not saying that these guys are going to be like, Fred Warner, but I'm saying that they can get more out of guys than you would expect. So I think that's going to be a very intriguing matchup to see if they can match up against the tight ends and CMC and people coming across the middle where we have struggled past, and it could be a struggle with these young guys. So that's interesting for sure. In terms of worries, as a Panthers fan going into this game, into the season, but obviously specifically for this one, what are you worried about a little bit? A position group, a matchup?
You may have covered it a little bit there as well. That your defensive line against our offensive line, I think, could be a real issue for us as well. I think you've got a certain strong area of that team who's going to definitely come up against a weak area of our offensive line, and those tight ends might end up blocking more than they need to because we just need to keep our quarterback safe. And there's been times last year when we look at it and goes, our quarterbacks didn't have enough time to do much of anything. They were just getting hit. And I think if we don't improve on that in this second year of rules reign, then Darnold could be in a similar situation to what he had last year.
Yeah, I mean, we know what Darnold is like when he's under pressure because we didn't protect him by and large, and it's not a recipe for success. Let me say, he's not somebody who deals with pressure well. I'm sure that later on when we discuss, in our podcast, when we discuss our matchups, I'm sure we're looking at this matchup as licking our chops as well. But basically, I mean, we know Sam, we know how he's under pressure, and he's definitely got a lot of physical ability, but we do feel that when you get to him, and maybe because of what's happened to him, he's the ghost thing, right? But I mean, that was overblown, massively overblown. But that kind of thing of being a bit frazzled under pressure, that's a thing that definitely is a case with Sam. He can get frazzled if you get too much pressure onto him. So you got to hope that these guys hold out a bit better against some of these stronger D lines that you're facing, including one on Sunday. Quinnen Williams is going to be a problem, I think, on Sunday. In terms of confidence, obviously there are some matchups where you guys are in the ascendancy, like you have that domination over that matchup. Which ones are you which is the confidence you got into this game?
I mean, if they can get the connection together, if Darnold does get enough time, like getting it to Robbie Anderson, using the report that they've had before. I think it would just be nice to have CMC back for a consistent amount of time. I am a little concerned that after what's happened last year, the management kind of slow it down with him a little bit, especially if they start doing well in games. Maybe they take their foot off the brake
don't say
for
that.
CMC a little bit.
I had first overall pick in my league of records, so I've got CMC.
Ooh.
So I had him last year as well, and I thought I'm going to re-up and do this again because last year was unfair. So I'm going to redo it, and hopefully, because don't tell me you're going to slow down with CMC. I mean, he'll still smash anyway. So I think the usage has been crazy, but yeah, the weapons you guys have got are known, very much so, and against our young, unproven defensive backfield, especially the corners. I think there's some talent there, and you could find a situation where actually these guys hold out really quite well, but we're nervous about it too. Like we think it's kind of like we've shipped out everyone who we know is mediocre, and we've just left a bunch of question marks, and maybe one of them turns out to be a plus, but maybe not, and then we're in real trouble. So it's an intriguing one for sure for you guys to see how it plays out, as well as us as well. In terms of a game prediction, if you want to kind of a stat or a thing that you want to throw out there, just so we can kind of document it when we look back to the game after the weekend, what's something that you kind of say, yardage, touchdowns, interception, what kind of thing you want to put out there as a prediction?
So I've got one for each team.
Okay, that'd be interesting.
And let me just... So I have CMC down as the RB4. So I haven't gone as high as putting him as the 1 for the week. I think that belongs to Alvin Kamara. But certainly RB4. However, I've got Corey Davis down as my wide receiver 3 for the week.
Okay.
And that is with 7 receptions on 11 targets for 99 yards and a touchdown.
Okay. Well, I have him in all my flex spots everywhere. So
there we go.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that as well. Yeah, I mean, a lot of Jets fans have been going Corey and Elijah Moore for sure. I mean, we're very... that duo, we haven't even seen Elijah Moore in pre-season because he had a quad, so but he's absolutely fine. It was all cautionary. It's like we want him for week 1. We don't care about pre-season. We've seen enough in training camp, so yeah, we're very excited about that duo. And so, what about what about the one for the Panthers? What you got a prediction for that?
Have Darnold down as the QB 10.
Okay. I mean, I think there's a picture of that. I mean, if you guys can hold out enough, and obviously the pass rush is definitely dampened without Carl Lawson there. There is a potential that the DBs don't hold out. Like I said, if those question marks end up being massive X's instead of ticks, then I can see that because of the weapons you guys got. So as much as, he has the ability to do it, we know, and he can obviously, when things break down, he can make things work. And then get out of the pocket, which may be quite useful compared to Teddy last year in terms of managing that pressure. I think, before we get to our score prediction, I'll say this in terms of giving you advice for Sam. He's going to do some things where he's going to get out of the pocket because he has to, because I think the protection is really poor this year for him, if I'm honest. Yeah. He's going to get out of the pocket. He's going to absolutely have some absolute highlight plays that you're going, oh my God, that was incredible. And then he's going to also do some things that you go, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, honestly, it's going to happen. You just hope that the first is way out, the amount of times that the first comes out is more outweighs than the second option. That's what your hope is, that they kind of work out ways of him kind of limiting those mistakes. But it just happens with Sam because he tries to make things work, and it just, sometimes he sometimes it just moves a bit too fast when everything's going flying around him and he's under pressure. It just happens. So, we wish him. We wish him well. The thing is, we're in a very tough spot because we do like Sam generally as a fan base, and we wish him well. Generally, I think I speak for a lot of Jets fans. We don't wish you well for Sunday, but we also kind of don't wish you well for the season because we have your second round pick as well next year. So it's kind of like we want Sam to do well, but we kind of want you guys to lose all your games, so we get the second round pick, a high second pick. If we get a top 10 pick in the second round, that would be obviously what we want. So we're kind of conflicted as Jets fans, but no, Sam obviously when he was interviewed by the Carolina media, he had opportunity to throw the Jets under the bus. He didn't. He's a stand-up guy, and he always was a really, really good guy. And so, yeah, I think going forward, I think we truly hopefully give him success from next year onwards, if it's ideal for what the Jets want. But that's interesting. Before we leave, score prediction. What do you want to throw out a score prediction for this one?
Yeah, I'm thinking both teams are going to go above 20 points each.
Right,
So I'm thinking 27-24. That might work.
Yeah.
You know, a field goal separates the teams.
Yeah.
I think that I mean, thank goodness we've gotten rid of Joey Sly for this year, and he can go to the Texans. I'm happy with that.
I like Joey Sly.
It wasn't consistent. It was.
I know, like he has the coolest name of any cat. I love Joey Sly.
Yeah.
I love that, and he's just got. Yeah, he had some really great kicks, but yeah, the consistency is the number one thing for kickers, isn't it? So you're saying 24-27 Panthers, yeah, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess you're saying. I mean, you can see it the other way as well, and I think we can see it.
Yeah.
I've gone 31-27 Jets, but I could see your score. I can see 31-27 Panthers. It's really one of those ones where nothing would surprise me in terms of. I think it's gonna be a close game. I'll be surprised if it was one-sided, but I think there's gonna be some points actually, because I just think that the offenses are actually a little bit ahead of the defenses in this game going into it. So. No, but it's really, really, really good. So I can't say I wish you luck for Sunday and maybe even for the season because of the reasons we just said. But
of course.
No, thank you for joining us. Do you want to give a little shout out to the things that you're doing, your writing work, your podcast work for the listeners?
Sure. So I'm going to be doing a weekly article for 5 Yard Rush looking at the rushing stats, so analysing which teams I think are going to do well in terms of the ground game every week. So this week I've talked about the Patriots and the Niners having some really strong offensive lines there, and the Steelers not really improving on what they had last year. So, you know, Najee might find it a bit tough this year because talent can only take you so far.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the Ballers Dynasty League it's just us reviewing a home league, really. Me and a few of my buddies, including Pitsy, who also writes for 5 Yard Rush as well. So, hello to those guys.
No, absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks, Rob, for joining us on this one. And like I said, we'll see what happens on Sunday. I'm sure we'll be talking on Twitter about the outcome of this game and kind of seeing how it goes forward for the rest of the season. But anyway, for that, we'll wrap it up and we'll head back to me and David. All right, we're back now. Yeah, thanks for Rob for that. That's really good that he joined us on that. And yeah, can't say we wish him too much luck for Sunday, but yeah, thanks for jumping on the pod with us. Now, with our part of our predictions, our look forward to the game, we'll go through a couple of categories. So the first one is, what matchups, David, are you looking at that kind of could be pivotal to where the game goes on Sunday?
I think the main matchup that I'm looking at is the Carolina interior offensive line. I wrote about this on Gang Green Nation, and the Jets interior defensive line. You're basically putting up our biggest strength against what I consider their biggest weakness. So, if we can disrupt it up the middle as much as I think we will, then I could see Sam getting thrown off, Cam having to go kind of east to west instead of north to south, and I mean, it gives me fits thinking about him against our linebackers, which I think we'll come on to. But that interior, they've kind of got, we've got Quinnen, we've got Foley, we've got Sheldon Rankins. We've got a lot of talent inside, and they're going to be playing. They're going to be playing kind of. Matt Paradis is their center. He's had a really down time since he came over from Denver. He's not looked anywhere close to as good as he did when he was over in Denver and winning the Super Bowl. They've got Pat Elfline, who's going to be starting at left guard. Obviously Pat. We know all about Pat, and I don't think anyone's going to be fearful about Pat blocking our best players.
Quinnen versus Pat is like,
I mean, that's
very juicy.
And then on the right guard, they've had to go to their backup as well. So their right guard, John Miller's not going to play because he's been put on the COVID list.
Yeah.
So he can't play. So they're going to play Dennis Daly, who they picked him 2019, I think it was, and then they kind of started him at left tackle straight away. He was a disaster. I mean, he gave up 8 sacks, he gave up 4 penalties, he was getting beat regularly. And then he had a lot of injuries last year, so we just haven't seen him. But he's a 6th-round pick in his 3rd NFL season, and he's just starting at interior, so he hasn't got a massive amount of NFL experience interior either. So, we Pat Elflein, Matt Paradis, and a guy who's barely played, and a 6th-round pick interior against Quinnen Williams and Foley and Sheldon Rankins. I mean, I like that. Even Nathan Shepard and Jonathan Marshall, you can carry on. Jonathan Marshall really showed up in the preseason. I was quite impressed by what I saw from Jonathan Marshall. So,
I mean, even Cameron Irvin. Is it Irvin on the left tackle
Irvin's
as well?
Left tackle.
I think we could get some success even with Bryce. Obviously, if it was Carl Lawson, it'd be a complete smash, that one. But I mean, even the guys that we've got going against him, I just think they could probably get some success against him as well. I
read a stat the other day that quite interesting on Cam Irvin was that PFF put this one out. I think it was when he was originally signed, but they had 151 tackles who have played 1,500 snaps or more since 2018, and Cam Irvin is ranked 151st. So he is technically the worst tackle in football over the last 3 years to have actually played a certain amount of snaps. And Pat Elflein, because it's actually not tackles, it's just offensive linemen. I think Pat Elflein's like 147th. Yeah. So they've got 2 of the worst offensive linemen. I mean, this is tempting fate, because then we'll have 0 sacks and
I know. But you got to look at where the matchups are, right? You got to look at where the strengths and weaknesses are. I mean, I guess that goes on to one of the ones I'm looking at is obviously the flip side of that is obviously down the other side of the back end of the field is obviously our young DBs going up against some very talented players that Sam Darnold has to throw to. Obviously, we're going to have to deal with CMC, who's going to create issues out of the backfield. But then you've obviously got Robbie, you've got DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall, and Dan Arnold as well as a decent kind of receiving tight end as well. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. That's the balance, right? Like, how quickly can you get to Sam before he can get the ball out to those guys who you expect will do quite well against our young DBs. So that combo is it's always pivotal, and I think it's going to be pivotal in every single game that we go into. We're going to look at like how weak is the line compared to how strong is the offensive weapons for the opponent. With our combo of very strong defensive line and a very suspect on paper, kind of DB room. So I think that pivot is what from what you're saying from what I'm saying. Those two is going to go hand in hand in terms of how we manage the Carolina offense. I think there's going to be quite a lot of points that they're going to have quite a lot of success. I think it's a situation where we could probably get a couple of sacks and we could probably even get a couple of interceptions potentially. I wouldn't even be shocked. And yet I think they could also go down the field on us at the same time, where like they'll have success, but Sam will make mistakes on when there is the occasional pressure that comes through, and we know what Sam does under pressure. So I think it could be one of those kind of wacky games where they actually do have offensive success, but also quite a lot of mistakes as well. So that's one. And then the other one I'm looking at is Mackay and AVT up against Brian Burns and Derek Brown on that, on their defensive line. Can they, we know that this line's done well with the run game. It's really about pass protection. Can they protect Zach, on that left side there? Hopefully, in game time, we've seen in the preseason Mackay's looked good, but it has been against kind of second string guys. But obviously last year he was really good against a lot of good pass rushers as well. Did pretty well. So hopefully his performances against Carl Lawson was more due to Carl Lawson being who he was, even though he had some issues also at Green Bay as well with dealing with some of the pass rush. So we'll have to see about that. But that one's a little bit one you're like, well, I'm kind of not, I was going to say nervous about it, but I would say I'm just curious to see how well we protect on that side of the ball, on that side of the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brian Burns is exactly the player we kind of thought he was going to be when he got picked in the first round out of Florida State. 16.5 sacks in 2 years is pretty good. It's pretty decent. So, He's started his career really well. It's going to be a great test for Mackay. Like he's not going to get a moment because Burns is on you in a flash, and this is where Mackay's kind of quick feet is going to come into play. So maybe the Jets will run a few screens, try and kind of get their over aggressiveness to play against them.
Mm-hmm.
But that offensive line is going to get tested because you got Brian Burns, you got Derek Brown. I mean, even Morgan Fox had a good year. I think for the Rams before he came over to the Panthers, and he had a good year last year. So there is plenty of talent. And then you get into linebacker, you've got Hassan Reddick and Shaq Thompson, and they've got some talent. So we're gonna have to be at our best.
Yeah.
I mean, ABT
Jeremy
against
Chin.
Derek Brown,
And you got at the
Jeremy
backfield,
Chin,
Jeremy Chin, and we know Justin Burris is a safety there now. And then JC Horn, the rookie, the really high-rated rookie there they've got there. So there's a lot of talent on that ball for the Carolina defense, and I think we just have to see how we match up. I think we've got some good players. I think having Corey Davis continue what he's doing would be amazing in terms of what we've seen in preseason, and you add Elijah Moore if he can do what we were kind of nearly about to see before he kind of had to pull out of stuff of the preseason. If he can come in and be the player that we think he is with some of the other weapons, I think we could really test them still, even with the weapons they do have. I think they've got some good defensive players, but I think we've got some really good offensive players as well. So this matchup is so 50-50. I'm really, really torn on this one, and you'll see the record that we'll give at the end of, probably for my one anyway, indicates how close it's going to be. In terms of, if we go to any players, if you had to pick a kind of player that you would say you're worried about from the Jets in terms of the matchup they're facing, who would you say?
I think I'm going to go with the obvious and the easy one. I'm going to go with whoever lines up at that CB2 spot. So obviously you've got Bryce Hall on one side, and I imagine he will predominantly go against DJ. And then on the other side, you're going to have either Isaiah Dunn or Eccles or Pinnock, a rookie who's going to be tested because Robbie Anderson has tremendous deep speed.
Yeah.
But if you play 15 yards off him, then they're going to take that 15 yards all day as well. So, Isaiah Dunn, the team seemed to have a lot of faith in Isaiah Dunn. We saw him in preseason; he got beat a fair amount, and quite a lot of it were on deep routes. So, is Robbie Anderson going to have a field day? Potentially. He could have a very good start to the season because he is going to be going up against the rookies starting their first NFL game. I hope that we roll safeties over to give them a little bit of help, just to make sure, at least early, just to get their confidence level up. But I mean, that is an easy one to say. I'm worried about it because, like you said, they have got multiple receiving weapons that Sam Darnold can go to, and our defensive, backs are untested. So I kind of wrote yesterday in a positive piece. I'm seeing it as a positive as well because we don't know what we've got.
Yeah,
if it was Bless Austin out there,
it could be
you'd
good.
know that he was bang average. But who's to say that Dunn or Eccles or Pinnock doesn't show up and all of a sudden become Richard Sherman or whoever it is? You just don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the one I'm definitely concerned about. But I think you've got a different one, haven't you?
Yeah, I would say it's the young linebackers either side of CJ, but maybe more specifically Sherwood. But I think in terms of his athletic profile, I worry a little bit more in terms of what CMC. Just one of the best players. There's a reason why he's the first overall pick in almost every fantasy draft. He's an absolutely amazing player, and he's going to be really problematic. And I just feel like I think Hamza being a little bit more. I don't know. I think they're both going to struggle in different ways, but because he's going to take advantage of that. But I do think that the counteract, the thing I'm hoping for, and you said obviously about you hoping that even though you're nervous about it, the positive angle on the worry for your guys is obviously you don't know what you've got in them. I think that's the same with the linebackers. And the other thing is obviously we've got two great linebacking coaches as a defensive coordinator and head coach. So hopefully that kind of helps kind of bridge the gap a bit. But yeah, CMC's he's going to have his a little bit of his fill, I think, against this team. He's going to be hard to stop, and I think it's going to be a good day for him. I really think that this is going to be quite a potentially high-scoring game. And I think that's going to indicate it in terms of where we're kind of worried the most about. What about a player you're confident in? Who's kind of someone that you think is really you think he's going to do a really good job on Sunday?
Well, I've got two players, one defensive, one offensive. Defensively, I can't bet against Quinnen Williams against that interior offensive line. You know, like you said, Quinnen Williams against Pat Elflein it's mouth-watering for the Jets. He hasn't long come back from injury, so there may be a little bit of rust, but I'm still backing him to get multiple sacks to start his season. I just think he's going to be too good. Darnold will start getting happy feet in the pocket, start to panic. I mean, on your Cam kind of projection, if you've got him in a PPR league this week, I mean, that is golden, because I can see Sam getting flustered and checking down to him constantly. I can see 10 receptions for McCaffrey this weekend.
Yeah.
And on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Elijah Moore. I just think that he's so good that, if they do put Dante Jackson on Corey Davis, and Dante Jackson's a pretty good corner. He's not a lockdown corner, he's not a shutdown corner, but he's a pretty good corner, and I think Corey Davis will still get success against him just because of Davis's catch radius. But Elijah Moore running against their second, against JC Horn potentially, or inside. I quite like that matchup. I quite like, Elijah Moore put so many players on skates in preseason. I can't wait to see him do it again. And JC Horn's very handsy, so we'll have to see what NFL kind of crew we get, because if they get quite a strict crew, they're going to be throwing some flags on JC Horn, because he likes to be physical. And especially if he's against Elijah Moore, who turns him around, JC Horn's going to be grabbing him all afternoon. So I'm quite excited about it.
It is really exciting to finally see Elijah play in front. We never got to see him in preseason, so to finally see him, and just to see, can he just be? I mean, yeah, I think there's this quiet thing. We're kind of quietly cautious, because we're like, we think we've got a really, really special player there, but we just want to see it happen. And I think it's the same with a lot of the young players. You just want to kind of see it before you get too excited. I think we got burnt by some of the excitement in the last couple of years with young players who never really worked out. So, I think Elijah's very exciting. I mean, the player I'm confident in is, like you mentioned him, is Corey Davis. I think he's really, he's taken up that leadership role. He's now captain. I really think his demeanor is really much like he's determined to really keep on improving and keep on, trying to be the player that he was drafted to be. He was never bad, but he never lived up to that number 5 overall pick for the Titans. So, but I think he's like slowly getting there in terms of, like, last season was a really good season. And I think he's just looking to progress, and we saw it in the preseason, his connection with Zach as well. So I really think that, like you said, Dante Jackson's a good player, but I just think that Corey Davis is going to have some good stuff to show on Sunday. Defensively, I would say I would go with, and so you can pick any of the guys on the defensive line, really. I mean, JFM is a guy I think is just going to be there. John Franklin Myers is going to be really kind of turning up for kind of another year of improvement and showing a bit more of what he can do. I think I'm really excited to see him as well, and I'm confident that he's going to do well on Sunday as well. Okay, random prediction time. So what's a random prediction that you want to say? It can be bold, it can be whatever it be. What's your random prediction for the game on Sunday?
So I'm going to say there's going to be 2 pick sixes in this game.
Okay.
And my hope is that both of them are going to go our way.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily that comfortable with it. I think Zach is going to take some risks. I think he's going to have a good game. I do think Zach's going to have a good game.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say there's going to be a couple of pick sixes in here. And I think we'll be pleasantly surprised by our cornerbacks. I'm going to pick Eccles to take our pick six back to the house. And if it's 2 for us, the other one's going to be Guidry.
Right, yeah. It's interesting. I mean, the guys have got ball skills, though. The guys, even though they may get beat on the occasional. This is what I was saying about they could be giving up quite a lot of yards, but they also could get quite a lot of production as well, because I think that they've got really good ball skills, and they can actually, I think, get a couple of interceptions, but yet still get beat on quite a lot of other plays on other times. So, it's going to be an interesting game. I hope that Zach's one's there. I do think he may throw a pick. So I can see it happen. Maybe, hopefully not for a pick six. Obviously, that would be reminiscent of Sam's first game in Detroit. I think my random prediction actually is going to be a bold prediction on Zach. Actually, I think he is going to have an interception, but I think he's going to have a really strong day. I think I'm going to go with I'm going to go north of 250 yards and go 2 TDs at least, to pair with that interception. I'm not 100% sure he'll get the interception. I'm so confident in the kid, the way his process, the way he's working. Again, we have to see it now. We've seen it in preseason. Now we need to see it against proper first team players with good quality, again with good scheming, trying to really throw everything at him. We have to see what happens, but I'm just really confident in terms of the way he goes about his work. He exudes. I'm really impressed with his interviews and the way he speaks about the game. We have to see. I'm holding my breath at this point in terms of my excitement a little bit with him, but I'm struggling because it is very exciting, the stuff we're seeing with Zach. So, score time. What's your prediction for the score on Sunday?
I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think it could go down to a field goal.
Right,
So I'm going to go Jets 27, Panthers 24.
Right.
That's what I think. I think 3 touchdowns for Zach, 2 field goals, but I can see us giving up over 20 points as well. Mostly to Cam.
Yeah, easily. I'm going with 27-31 Jets. I think that we're going to give up a lot of yards. I think we're going to give up a lot of yards, actually, and not as many points as it would indicate, because I think some of those interceptions might come, which kind of helps us out a little bit. But I think we're going to put up a lot of points on them. Even though they've got good defense, I think they're still quite young and developing, and I think the line's going to be good, especially in the run game. I think the run game is going to be strong. I think that's another thing we can say confidently. I think the run game overall is going to be solid. If not, we don't know who it's going to be. I think overall we're going to get success throughout that. So that's one thing. But I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game, even though it's tight. And I'm all for a high-scoring game. Give me some points. Get back and forth.
Don't give some offense.
Yeah, don't give me some boring, 13-10 slugfest where no one can put anything together on offense and they look kind of dead on arrival. Come on, let's get some points. Let's put some points on the board and actually win games offensively. That would be a really fun turn of events. So we are here now. We're basically here. We're at the point where we are. Yeah, the game is. You will hear us only now after the game. We will be back on Monday for. We're going to be recording on Monday. Hopefully, we get that out as soon as possible. So yeah, hopefully get out on Monday as well. Look out for that on Monday evening. Our recap show of the game on Sunday. So David, is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
Just thank God it's here. Thank God we've got some football to talk about.
Yeah.
Let's go Jets. Let's keep positive. If we do lose, it's one game. Doesn't matter. Just turn off all internet for 5 days and let that Darnold hype go down. But it's not going to matter because we're going to win. Zach Wilson's the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Positivity going into the weekend. Let's go, Jets. Let's go and enjoy your weekend. And we'll see you after the game.